Hi, and welcome to Real Trail Talk. I am Donovan D'Souza from The Long Ways Better.
And I'm Mark Pybus from The Life of Pi. Welcome to episode 59. This is uncharted territory for us in the sense that we're on different microphones, but this is in our own offices thanks to the coronavirus.
Yeah, so this is the first episode that we've recorded since the
physical distancing, yeah?
Yeah, so the previous episodes were recorded about a month ago, and this is the first one since then, so things have changed quite a bit in the last month.
Yeah, so just to be safe, Donovan has lent me some of his recording equipment, and I have set it up in my own office, and he is in his office. So yeah, we've got video going on at the same time. It's all very weird and new. I mean, we did something similar when you were on the Gold Coast, but nothing like this.
Yeah, we're like, 10 minutes away?
Yeah.
Right now?
And yeah, haven't seen Donovan since the last one. I'm not actually sure when I'll get to see you next.
Yeah,
apart
I know.
From on the camera right here.
Yeah, I can see Sadie on the camera.
Yeah, no, she's been for 2 walks today. We've covered about 12 kilometres in just to get out and about, so she's nice and tuckered out.
Awesome.
All right, so I guess we get into it, and no doubt you've already seen by the title of the podcast, this is my rebuttal episode. So it was kind of like I planned to finish it in time so we could at least record a couple or towards the end where I get to have a bit of a say, but as timing worked out, it never really happened, and we ended up having a lot of guests on just to plug in the gaps so it wasn't just you speaking all the time.
Yeah.
So I get my response after listening to your not
ranting?
Complaints, but yeah, ranting at times, and also your gushing at times.
Yep.
Yeah, let's get stuck into it. So
Sure.
Callum understood dwelling up.
Yeah, tell us what you thought. I mean, when we did that episode, I think you'd done most of or all of it anyway. But have your feelings changed about the section?
So the one section I hadn't done, so there was a couple of gaps between Dale Road and Sullivan Rock that I hadn't done, and also Mount Cook onwards towards dwelling up. Basically, I'd only done little sections, so I was expecting the worst. And to be honest, it's come down to a lot of, and this is going to be a theme going right throughout the podcast, is it's expectations being set, and mainly by you as well, that the area from Mount Cook onwards was going to be horribly burnt and terrible. But I didn't find that, though. I picked the perfect weekend in, I think it was July, to do this one, and it was beautiful temperatures, cloudy, not a whole lot of burnt forest, which is good. And I really enjoyed just the simple act of walking. Like, it's not a hilly section, and it was nice just to be out there, and like, it's the reason why we do it. As much as it doesn't have like the super thrilling like granite peaks or giant forest, it was just nice forest in places, and some of actually the best Jarrah forest on the track is found here, I think.
I think what you said about expectation is probably a big thing, because you don't have the old guidebooks, and in there they said it was the best Wandoo Creek systems on the track, and I could see Wandoo Creeks, but they were quite far away. So I think that, what you say there, like, I think if you went to it with my expectation of it being excellent, and then you went and did it with the opposite of me being quite negative about it.
And that's also something I'd like to raise, is you were pretty much going off the guidebook as well, whereas every time I went out I had the map and that was it. So I went in all open-eyed, whereas you were constantly referring throughout the day to the guidebook and telling you what was coming up and what to expect. So I guess if something wasn't there, like the Wandoo Creek system, you could be a little more disappointed than me, that's just like, oh hey, look, there's a Wandoo Creek over there, but we're not going to it. I think that shaped your experience a lot compared to mine, whereas I was just like reading what you had written or had said on the podcast as a reference in the back of my mind. So I know I did enjoy this, and like I do have the same quibbles as you. Is like you run parallel to a few water courses, but you don't actually go near them. It'd be nice to get a bit closer.
Yeah. And I think, as you said about timing, that I did this not long after there was a prescribed burn that went a bit too far. Whereas you did this probably like, what, a year or two after I did it?
Yeah, probably. So I did this both in 2019, so the bit between Dale Road and Sullivan Rock or Mondanox I did in June 2019, and then Sullivan Rock to North Bannister in July. So it had a bit of time to recover. It wasn't like everything had got like that jumper, the epicormic regrowth, so it wasn't pretty, but it wasn't at least like blackened and torched. Whereas I did find between Mount Dale and more Canning to Mondanox a bit kind of burnt and unpleasant. After the Canning River it was fine, but like around Canning was still like, I don't know, it's probably like the worst that Jarrah can look. And it is touted as like on the map there's like a bit of virgin Jarrah there, and you're walking through and you're like, oh, is it though?
Yeah,
because if they're burning it so much, it kind of, the big trees fall over and like it loses that special effect.
Yeah, it's hard to tell in that area which is supposed to be the virgin Jarrah.
I found that around Bailing Up as well, skipping ahead, but we'll get to that bit. And then North Bannister to Dwelling Up. This one had been put off like 4 or 5 times for me, and I'm actually happy it then got shifted out to spring. It was September last year I did this one, and it was just a beautiful section of the track. Like there's not much in between North Bannister and Dwelling Up apart from the big mine. Like it just felt like a bit more wild. Like you're not going to run across lots of vehicles or people out there, and you're going up and over the hills, and Mount Wells was really special as well. And I think I had perfect weather. It was a little bit warm that first day, but then the next 2 days was fantastic. My only gripe about this section is they'd done a prescribed burn earlier in the year, which is why I had to postpone it, and they'd ruined the area around Chedora. Like burnt the canopy, so then all of the leaves then fall down and there's this huge, it just feels really dry and open. And like they'd burnt right up to the Chedora campsite. It was just really horrifying to see, actually, because I'd heard that was quite a nice section. It was all lush and green. Yeah,
I thought it was quite nice when I went, so it's a shame that, but I guess as you say, this is the extra element that's difficult to plan for is the external sort of forces that apply to the track.
But yeah, the rest of the day, like walking into Dwelling Up was amazing. Like I love the railway and the connection you get with it, and also the quality of the Jarrah forest there is pretty cool. Apart from that one section where it runs near the highway and it takes you like, they're not even natives, are they? They're native to WA. They're like the smooth barked, like something you'd see in New South Wales.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're planted from there, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why are we going there? It just doesn't make sense. And it was just, wasn't too long, but it was just kind of a weird thing. And I had a guy from Victoria and he's like, they're not native, are they? I was like, no, they are not.
Yeah, I think that whole section there is mainly about following the old railway line.
Yeah. No, I did enjoy that. And we got to see not the steam train, but the diesel locomotive thing pulling tourists along. That was quite cool. And then Dwelling Up to Collie, that was our 5th episode, wasn't it? 5th or 6th episode. So I hadn't done this one yet either, but I had the maintenance sections. So I'm able to provide a little perspective. But this is a trip that I actually did with Aaron, the whole 7 days. And this is probably one of the sections I'll agree with you that it's not the best, and it is a giant compromise for the track.
Yeah. And it's quite a long section, isn't it? Because it's quite a... You do this all the way through in one go?
Yeah, from Dwelling Up all the way to Collie.
Yeah. How many nights is that?
6 nights. So we stayed in every campsite because, it was like a 34k day. If you doubled into Collie, I was like, no, I'll just slow down and enjoy the experience.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just that connection with the outside world just doesn't leave you. And we did this we started on the June long weekend. So it was already a lot of activity going on with people trying to get outside, and a lot of dirt bikes, a lot of four-wheel drives, a lot of illegal camping going on. And I remember at one point, I think it was Murray to Ducanelli, and we're up on the ridge near the river, and you could hear the pig dogs and the shooting and the cars and everything. I was just like, I hate this. This is terrible. Like, what has society become that these areas are just infested with these idiots? So I just put my headphones on. I was actually quite sad doing that. And then seeing that all burnt out, and it just wasn't enjoyable. Even though it was kind of like, it was just maybe a 2 or 3 kilometer stretch that I didn't really enjoy. And then, yeah, I think it's missing that kind of connection with the river along there, especially that first and second day out, is you're really only a couple of spots where you're like, oh cool, there's the river, and then you kind of go away from it. So I'd like to see that area realigned in the future, but I doubt it will happen, and also shut off to illegal activity, but that'll never happen because they don't have the resources.
Hopefully they do have the resources there at the moment, because
yes, well, that's the thing. It takes a pandemic like this for them to actually crack down on people doing the wrong thing.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens, but I mean, it's an enjoyable section, and it's one that I have 2 maintenance sections in, so I enjoy going out and looking after it, but it's just, it gets to me a bit more here because I see frequently like how the area gets ruined by dirt bikes and the mining as well, which is becoming more of an issue. You wonder when that'll try and jump the river and swallow up a whole section of the track. There's just a whole lot of like mixed activities in this area that make me a little anxious, and just it's always in the back of my mind when I walk through here, like the future and what's going to go on with this area. But moving on from there though, past like the conveyor belt onwards, I actually really, really enjoy. The day from Ducanelli to the conveyor belt was not fun. That giant long 4-wheel drive track is horrible. The only consolation is it was bucketing with rain, and you just kind of put your head down and just walk through it. Whereas if it was a nice day, I think I would have been even more disappointed. But yeah, past the conveyor belt, it begins to start feeling like you're in the wild again and you're not going to see anyone. And walking up and down those valleys, through the forest, even though it was burnt out from the 2015 fires, I think it was. It's just a nice area. And Yordamung, I think, again, going back to your perspective, is you visited right after it was horribly burnt, whereas I'd given it a year and a bit to recover, and it actually, like, you could tell it'd been burnt, but not as bad as what you described. Was it like hell on earth or something?
Yeah, and I mean, I saw your photos because they don't look anything like what I saw. What I saw was just like the bleakest landscape I'd ever seen, and especially when people talked about it as being a particularly special place, and then to see it like that. Yeah,
I talked to the maintenance volunteers that look after Yordamung, and they were devastated when the fire went through because they were describing it as like a beautiful, beautiful place, like untouched, and that fire just ruined that whole area. And there's been another one go through, so I think Yordamung was one of the ones that was almost burnt down. So we'll have to see what that looks like when the intrastate travel ban gets lifted.
Yeah, have a walk out there and see how bad it is.
Let's hope the Kingdom of Pi doesn't get too badly burnt, because that was already done quite badly in 2015.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then, I don't know, walking into Collie, it was better than I expected.
So you liked Westralia?
I did, actually. The she oak forest that dominates that area, I love she oak, so even though it was a bit burnt, I didn't mind it. And even coming towards the end of a 7-day stretch, I was still like slowing down to take photos of sundews and like the different wildflowers and burnt scenes that were there. My only gripe though was the 1 kilometer or over 1 kilometer of highway walking, because it's the end of a 7-day stretch, and you're walking along this highway and you see trucks going by with giant logs on, reminding you of like the devastation that goes on in this area, and like all the diesel utes and 4-wheel drives like spewing out that horrible diesel smoke. It was just not a great way to end it. And I don't think, like, having gone through as a walker from Collie, like it's such a bleak town. I know they're trying to revitalize it, but it's like the walk in, you get to the visitor center, you're like, well, what now? And there's no good bakery. There's a couple of pubs, which we got picked up that afternoon, but there's just not a lot to make you cheerful about Collie. I don't know, it's just, whether it's the town, whether I'm being too harsh, I'm not entirely sure, but it just gives off that vibe to me.
Yep. Maybe you need to hashtag visit Collie again.
Yeah. Well, they're hell-bent on destroying their national parks and everything else with prescribed burns that get away, so maybe they don't want people to visit.
Yep. So the next section from there, south of Collie.
Yes.
What did you think?
Really enjoyed it. I know you didn't, but I love this section. Just endless Jarrah forest. I mean, that's why, Mark. That's why I didn't love it. Yeah, like the walk out of Collie again along the highway is not great, but at least you're starting that time. And it's a bit like kind of hodgepodge getting out, but there's enough like small patches to enjoy, especially like before the Collie River. And then once you get past that last power line crossing, you're just in just nice Jarrah forest. And I remember just taking it really slow, like stopping every hour, just having a sit down in the forest and enjoying it. Yabberup campsite I'm not a big fan of. It's a bit dark and grim, although since I've visited they have redone it. It's now got a skylight, and I think they've done some extensions maybe.
Yeah.
So it is a little lighter, but yeah, it's not set in a bad area. It's just I didn't really like that shelter the first time I saw it, and revisiting to stay the night I wasn't too keen, so I set up my tent near the fire area. And then day 2 is actually really enjoyable. I love the variety on Yabberup to Noggerup, because you've got a good mix of Jarrah forest, and you visit Glenmervyn Dam, and that's a nice little distraction. Had a bit of a swim in there. And then more Jarrah forest, then you hit like Mumbalup area. And I like that this is the farmland, like it connects you with the farmland. Because I think if you try and put the track too much into the Jarrah forest, especially having that long Darling Scarp section, is like you lose a bit of connection with country WA, because it isn't all forest, it's farmlands and small little hamlets. And I was lucky that the pub was open, and I had fish and chips, and I had a lady come over who was on a biking trip with her husband, and she'd done the track a few years ago, and we were swapping stories, and it was just that kind of nice camaraderie, even though like I was the only walker there. It's just nice to talk to someone about the track. And then the walk up to Preston National Park, even though it was warm, it was really enjoyable. Like again, just near the farmland.
What time of year was it?
This was spring, so it was September 2018.
Okay.
And then Preston National Park, as advertised by you, a very lovely national park.
Yeah. Like it seems like it shouldn't be as nice as it is, but it actually is nice.
Yeah, just like a random national park in the middle of nowhere. And what makes it funnier is there's a Forest Products Commission pine plantation on the other side of the road as you're walking up towards it. So I was just lucky that it's, preserved the way it is, and lots of wildflowers just carpeting everywhere. And Noggerup, enjoyable camp. So I didn't get to stay in the shelter because I had the 2 middle-aged stoners that were out looking for magic mushrooms, taking over everything. Yeah. But the being next to the brook was really cool. I found a nice log to do some stretching on and have a drink and whatnot. Yeah, it's just nice. But then listening to Steve on the Dream Bibbulmun podcast talk about that area and how good it could be kind of makes me want to go back and explore some of the things he was talking about with the granite, like bubbles everywhere and the little brooks and orchid fields and everything.
Yeah, because there's that one little taster area where you walk across the granite. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, this is going to get really exciting. And then it just like skirted it and then left.
Well, there's one scene in Lord of the Rings. It's not even a scene. It's a shot when Sam and Frodo are leaving the Shire, and it's like a montage of them going through the Shire. And there's one bit where they come to like a rocky little waterfall bit next to a river, and I was like, that's what I'm picturing this area could be, because it is quite hilly, and you'd imagine there'd be something like that with the granite. I
Yeah.
was like, I wish the track would find that and go near it a lot more than it actually does. But then Nogger up to Grimwade, your favourite day on the track.
Yeah, well, it's not my least favorite day, but I did say, and I think that you agreed with me, maybe you might have enjoyed it more, but I said you could put the photos in any order and it would be correct.
Yes.
And you did say that writing this was quite difficult because of how samey it was.
It was, but also I've just recently redone the photos, and I actually kind of have gone back to, I can remember each individual bit.
Really?
So I don't know what it was when I was writing it, but I was like, I'm struggling to remember this section and like relating to these photos, but now I can picture it in my mind as I'm going along. And yeah, I'm actually redoing the photo. I was like, I want to walk this day again. I know you probably will never walk this day, but
Never.
It was just enjoyable. Like there's a lot of, there's not a lot, but there's some bits of unburnt jarrah that are really cool, because it is just jarrah and really low undergrowth. So it's just like a sea of tree trunks, and that's really cool. I like that walking. But then this is the area where they're like, it's virgin jarrah forest. And I was trying to get the map matched up to my GPS. I'm like, this doesn't look like virgin jarrah forest. There's some bigger jarrah trees, but it just looks like everything else because it was all burnt out.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I understand where you're coming from, where it could be the same for the whole day, but I did not mind this at all this day.
But you enjoy walking through jarrah forest.
I do. There's a certain calmness that comes to like just looking at the ground, looking for wildflowers and orchids, and then seeing, especially the grey trunks. I like seeing a lot of those. Yeah. I don't think I'll ever sway you on this one, will I?
I don't think so, somehow. Although, that being said, yesterday I did go for a cycle on the Railway Reserves Heritage Trail, and I did find at the speed of bike that jarrah was not as repugnant as I find it when walking.
Well, there you go. You can do the Mundabiddy then and rave
Yes.
about the jarrah forest.
So maybe that might change my mind.
Although I've heard the Mundabiddy riders that ride at the jarrah forest areas, they always complain about the pea gravel, so that can be the focus of your hatred and your rage.
Well, I'll be focusing so much I won't be paying attention to the jarrah.
Yeah. And then Grimwade to Bailing Up. I actually didn't enjoy this day. I know you didn't, because it was your final day and you were injured and a few things went on there. But I just found it a bit... like the bits that I thought I was going to enjoy, I didn't. So the final walk into town along the Bailing Up Brook, I just found it meandering for the sake of meandering, and there was too much going on in terms of scenery changes. So you were never really too close to the brook, and there was a lot of blackberry that they were trying to get rid of. There's lots of like random pine areas. It just wasn't the idyllic like scenes I was expecting from Bailing Up, given how nice the town is. I just wish that there was a group that would spend a lot of money or time trying to make that into a really nice place, because it could be a draw card for the town to have a loop walk or a out and back walk along there. And it has a lot of potential. It's just very hodgepodge in terms of the walking, and then also having random properties everywhere, and then like walking along a road for like 50 meters and then cutting back in and then more road, and yeah. It was just kind of, at this point my foot was really, really hurting, so I just wanted to get into town. But yeah, it was just, it's an alright day. It's just, it's a long one too. You just want to get in.
And it feels like forever to get into town as well.
And they'd also done a prescribed burn just out of Grimwade when I went through.
What did you think of the, there's that whole section of the young Jarrah, and they're trying to say the regenerative power of the Jarrah forest?
Where was that? Where's that?
That's like just after after Grimwade. It goes into the section where there's like really young Jarrah, and in the book they big up it as like, how the regenerative power or something like that, and it just looks like really young, scrappy regrowth.
Well, they've gone and burnt it when I went through, so I was just kind of, I think I was trying to average like 6 Ks an hour through there just to get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it looked worse then.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the regenerative power. Like, it looked nice because it was recently burnt, and it was like the green of the undergrowth, like the new shoots, the black, and then the pinks and the reds and the orange, and then a blue sky as well. So I didn't mind it. I just didn't enjoy it.
Yeah. So moving south from Bailing Up
to Donnelly River. This was the first day out of Bailing Up was a bit melancholy for me because I seriously thought about bailing up because of my foot. It was really badly bruised, and like I was taking painkillers just so I could hobble along the track. I ended up leaving town really late. But yeah, I really enjoyed this day. This is probably one of the more enjoyable days I had on the track. So going through the Golden Valley Tree Park, I'd already visited there, and it wasn't the best time of year for it, but it was still nice to like have that callback. I think that's kind of what got me through this day. It was a couple of places I'd already been, and I could have that nice memory come back as to when I'd visited before. And the walk up the hill was really nice into the Greenbushes area, and again, I'd already been there doing the Greenbushes loop, so it was nice to return. And it was just kind of it was a weird day, like mentally for me. Like I was happy and sad and melancholy and like doubting whether I could still do it. But I got through it in the end, and it was a really, really fun day once I got past Greenbushes and the Jarrah Forest into the farmland. Like I think it's Spring Road, and then you get to the top of it and you can just see like farmland as far as the eye can see, and then there's pine plantation in the distance. I was like, all right, that's when I really perked up, and I was like, I'm enjoying this now. And like the walk through the farm, like there's that iconic photo that you posted that really had me G'd up for the day of the Bibbulmun post.
Yeah, the Windows marker, 95 look.
Yeah, like blue sky, green field, and like that's where you have to walk up, and that I love that section.
Yeah.
And then seeing the pine plantations, like it's still fairly young pine plantation, but it's not terrible to walk through. And then I was expecting Blackwood Shelter to be a lot worse than it actually was, but it's beautiful up there. I don't know why. Like, I understand that it was nicer when there were pines behind the shelter, but that view hasn't changed. And like I did have perfect weather. There was no winds. It was fairly warm. So I got a nice sunset, and you look out over that valley, and like I don't understand why people bag it out as much as they do.
I think because it's very windy, and if you were there, did you have good weather, or was it quite windy when you were there?
No. So like next to no wind, which is why I said like when I wrote my log entry, this is probably weather dependent, but I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
But like I don't understand because it faces north, and most of the weather comes from the southwest. So it's weird that so many people get the wind and the weather come into the shelter as much as they do.
Yeah, I'm not sure. When we were there, it was terrible because it was so windy. We actually this is the first time we set up our tent in the shelter, because it was, you couldn't even light a stove very easily because it would just blow out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the best experience.
Yeah. No, I understand. Like the area needs a lot of landscaping to make it look nice, and I mean, Steve mentioned they might be moving the shelter, but I really hope they don't, because I enjoyed watching the sunset from that spot. Just a bit of landscaping, a few more trees planted behind the shelter would be great. But otherwise, that's probably one of my better things. I think I put that in my top 10 when I was doing my review. So I can see the surprised look on your face.
Top 10, yeah.
Top 10.
A lot of people did used to say it was in their top 10, but I think it has slid down the charts quite significantly over the last decade.
And again, I think it's all down to circumstance and experience. Like, had it have been rainy or cold, I don't think I would have enjoyed it. But I just had the perfect afternoon there. So, and it was a fantastic night as well. Like the mist rolling through the valley. I think I had a full moon. And getting up, and there's that scene in Lord of the Rings where Legolas is talking to Aragorn, and there's like a bright moon, and it's all misty. I was like, that's exactly what it was.
Yep.
So Blackwood to Gregory Brook. This day I did not enjoy. I just found it really kind of like there's a lot of variety, but it wasn't good variety. It was just kind of when am I going to get to a good spot? And I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity with the Blackwood River as well. Like you don't really follow it that closely. And then the bridge going over it kind of is a bit dreary and concretey.
Yeah.
Did see the Southampton doggos, so that made it better. But it's a weird day. Like once you leave the river, you're climbing up to the dam on that like snaking road, and then you see the dam from a distance, and it's just kind of like patchy, burnt out, like skeletal jarrah forest. And I know I
don't
enjoyed
think it was that
jarrah.
bad when I went there.
Yeah,
I think it was burnt after I went, but before you did, obviously.
Well, no, it wasn't burnt, but like you could tell like a lot of the trees had been killed by fire, and they just weren't regenerating as they should. So I think it's probably going to be like 20 years maybe if they even do recover. But I just found it a bit kind of like I just wanted to get through the kilometres. And getting towards Gregory Brook was a little bit better as it gets a bit wetter, but it's just kind of one of those days where you just walk and you don't have strong feelings either way. It was just kind of a day.
Yeah.
Again, maybe experience is a bit warm. Maybe if it was wetter, I might have enjoyed it, but it just kind of seemed like a bit of an awkward day just to get point A to point B.
Fair enough.
But then, yeah, into Donnelly River, I really enjoyed this day because you get to the Karri Forest and it's following the Donnelly River and it's all wet and lush and there's wildflowers, and I mean, towards Donnelly River gets a bit kind of, when are we going to get there? But it's a fantastic day, and it's kind of that introduction to the Karri Forest because the guys that I'd stayed with at Grimwade and Bailing Up, they were like raving about the Jarrah Forest. I was like, wait until you get to the Karri Forest. And then, like, that was in the back of my mind when I was walking through here, just like, this is what I'm here for. Like, I remember like my very first like multi-day section on the Bib and how good that was, and it just kind of flooded back those memories.
Awesome. And so the next section is really, a full Karri Forest section.
Yeah. So this one we recorded and I'd already done, so
yep.
I don't know. And again, like I wanted to raise a point about this section is I may rave about it having done it 3 years ago, but from what we've heard, Donnelly River to Tom Road's going to be burnt out for another few years, and they've just burnt around One Tree Bridge as well. So people reading our posts and going, oh great, I'll go do this, it's one of the better sections, maybe in for a bit of a shock when they walk through. So again, it just comes down to timing with these sections.
I guess that's the challenge with the Bib, that I left going, I don't know if you could ever walk it perfectly, in that I don't know if you could ever walk it from start to finish and say, well, I think that everything was in the best condition it ever could be. No,
you'd never ever do that at the moment. But again, like, it's trying to pick when some of the sections are going to be better. Like this Donnelly River to Pemberton, I think any time they burn is never the right time. It's just kind of when they can. So, but I mean, Karri Forest responds better to fire than the Jarrah Forest. So I don't know. Time will tell what it'll look like in a few years' time. It may actually be somewhat bearable.
I think because it sheds every year, so it lets go of the burn. Whereas Jarrah's, like, it could be 20 years since the last fire, and you can still see char marks on those trees.
And again, like in the Karri forest, sometimes it might make it better because you get the tunnels of the new growth. And I know you're not a big fan of one section here that had it, but I actually love like the endless tunnels of whatever plant that is that grows.
Fair enough.
Pemberton to Northcliffe. I hadn't done this one when we recorded it. And I enjoyed it. Like, I was looking forward to doing this section because I'd come back from Karajini.
Yeah.
And I'd been there for like a week, and I'd penciled this one in for August. And I was like, I just want to get into the wetness of the Karri forest after visiting Karajini. And it was beautiful. It was stormy the night before I left. And then I got like 20 or 30 millimeters the first couple of days. And that's the kind of weather I really wanted. So I was in heaven walking through this section. I enjoy that it's like big ancient Karri forest, but then you get the farm sections to kind of break it up.
Yeah.
And then Warren campsite's fantastic. I love that position up on the hill. And Schaefer, it was a bit too cold and wet to go for a swim, but I can understand why people love having the dam there.
Yeah. And I think the forest there is interesting because it's such a mix.
And you get some like really, really like, you think that you've gone deeper into the forest than like normal, like most people don't, because there's that one section where there's like Tasmanian-esque ferns. And you're like, well, I have to have walked here to see that. You're not just going to drive somewhere into a car park and walk 2 meters to see that. That was a very small patch, and it just makes you feel like you've explored a little bit of the world that's maybe hidden from everyone else. And that's what I like about this section. Up until the last day, going into Northcliffe, where you're just like, well, I'm out of the forest now. It's just kind of pine plantation and not pine plantation, blue gum plantation and farmland. Till the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad day. It's just kind of a mix. Because Northcliffe, for such a small town, has so much like mixed use area around it. It kind of makes it hard to go in and out of that town without bumping into a farm or a plantation or something else.
Yeah. So the next town to town section is probably the one that I enjoyed the least, but yet there are some things that I got to experience that were quite good that you didn't get to experience.
Yes.
So I'd be very interested to hear what you think of this section.
Yeah. So
we're talking about Northcliffe to Walpole.
Northcliffe to Walpole. When did you do this one?
I think it was 2017 in the autumn.
Okay. So you're 2 years removed from the fires, and I'm 4 years removed from the fires when I did this. So it's kind of a difference there. But I still think we kind of had the same experience, especially day one. Like, I didn't enjoy that it's kind of wandered around aimlessly for quite a while. And again, like the Karri forest, you can't like knock it because it went through one of the most catastrophic fires we'd ever seen for Karri forest. So there's going to be skeletons everywhere, but the track alignment I thought was a bit off. Like, it could have gone closer to the rivers a lot more. And there's also like that messy exit out of town where it's like 4 kilometers of just crisscrossing roads and various little loops until you actually get away from things. But I'm not sure how you fix that because I've looked at the map and it just kind of it's a weird place, Northcliffe, for property. But anyway, but yeah, it's not a bad day. It's just kind of a so-so getting to Gardner.
Yeah.
But Gardner through to the end, I actually really, really, really enjoyed. Probably because you'd set this low expectation for this section. But I did, because I did this in started on the long weekend in June last year. So like you get those perfect winter days where it's like 19, 20 degrees and sunny. and you don't get too warm, but you don't get too cold. So it's just like you're just walking in the sunshine. It just feels good. You're not worried about getting burnt. So the open plain sections I didn't mind. I actually quite enjoyed the emptiness of them. There's this, like, because you said that you thought the wilderness aspect was overplayed.
Yeah.
Whereas I think it was just about right. Like, you at times there's roads there, but it doesn't feel like they're there unless a car goes by.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the track is on roads through here, which I didn't like. And, you didn't get that feeling. Like when you walk through button grass in Tasmania, you don't see any roads and there's no sense that there's a world beyond. And I didn't have that sense of separation. But you felt that it did have that sense for you?
Yeah, so more so after Dogpool. Actually, no, sorry, going after Lake Marringup. Once you exit the Karri Forest from there, there's the start of, you can feel the Pinjarra Plains sections where they've cut a track into this like savanna type stuff. And every now and then you'll get pockets of Karri and Jarrah that you can see in the distance, and it's fun walking in that complete openness, which is like, it's not something you do in WA. In WA, it's either a farm or it's forest. There's very little plains or savanna, and I enjoyed just looking around. You can see the curvature of the earth. If you sit down and close your eyes, you feel the emptiness. And I really, really enjoyed that. It just felt like another world. But going back to Lake Marringup, I think I ranked this as the second best campsite, or maybe the best campsite. That is just spectacular, that place. Again, I got perfect weather and I got a new moon, so I could watch the Milky Way rise over the lake. It was epic that night. But it's just like, if you say Lake Marringup to anyone who hasn't like walked a bib, they'll give you a blank look. But if you show them photos, they're like, "Wow, that looks really pretty. I'd like to go there." It's like, well, you just have to walk.
Yep.
It's kind of like one of the lakes around Collie or that area, like the dams where people flock to in their cars. It'd be a shame if they ever opened this up to car travel, because it is so much prettier than those places.
Definitely. It's it has been burnt recently though, didn't it? Like over the last spring.
I thought they'd planned to do it, but I'm not sure whether they actually did it.
Yeah.
I really hope they didn't. Yeah. Because it's like such an area, you think the helicopters would be able to fill up from the lake to fight any fires, but I guess the Karri Forest, with the fuel load that does carry, pardon the pun, you never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then moving on, so like Dogpool area, the one road I had an exception to along here is something different to you. I did not like Dog Road.
No, I didn't like Dog Road either.
But you never mention it in the vein that you do with Marin Road and Pinjarra Road.
I think just the length. But I did say that my most hated section of the entire bib is from the start of Dog Road through to when you enter the Pinjarra Plains on the walk trail.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But it's like, I knew it was coming. Dog Road, I didn't check. I deliberately don't read some of your posts right before I'm about to do a hike that you've already done. And this was again circumstance, because exiting one of the Karri, like going near one of the Jarrah Karri Islands, I was like, oh, I can't. Went to put something back in my pack or take something out, and I knocked the tube going into my hydration pack. So I went to go take a drink and it was empty. And I was like, oh no, I've run out of water. How's this happened? So I had to hike the last 8Ks without anything to drink. And Dog Road, it's 6Ks. I'm just like, right, I'm just going to power through. So I literally 6-7Ks an hour, just rocketed straight through. Didn't take many photos. It was just endless, boring road walking.
Yeah.
And then dog pool, like I've seen photos of the old dog pool and that looked amazing. I like the area. It's just don't like what they've done with the clearing so much around the shelter.
Yeah.
And that metal bridge. Yeah, don't agree that that's the best aesthetic look for the area.
Yeah. No, it's not.
And then we come on to dog pool to Mount Chance.
Yep. Go on.
So I had a fun start to the day. So you've got those white road signs that you find in the Karri Forest, and it said Marin Road that way. So I was like, right, I set the camera up. I'm going to take a selfie, like a time photo of this and send it to Donovan. It ended up really blurry. But like because I knew it was coming, I could have some fun with it. And it actually wasn't as bad as I was expecting. Like it's not just an endless road that's all the same. Like it changes. It goes from like big Karri forest to like mixed forest to then nothing and really sandy, and it keeps changing it up. So I wasn't too disappointed in it. And I put in a good podcast. I was searching for wildflowers and orchids off the trail. Like I was having a good time along here. So I'd actually say that I had a better time on this section than maybe some of the other like better sections of the track.
Okay. Really?
Yeah. Like it was a nice day and I enjoyed walking it. And I actually I think it's where it crosses the Shannon or a tributary of the Shannon River. It was International Nude Hikers Day coming up in a few weeks. So I was like, right, there's no one going to be around ever. So I stripped down and took a photo on that bridge. And that was a very liberating experience as a hiker.
Yep.
But yeah, like I can understand if you've got a bad day or you're not expecting this much road walking that it could be terrible. But I enjoyed that section, mainly thanks to you, Donovan.
Oh, you're most welcome, Mark. I completely ruined the surprise. So
Yeah. And what's even funnier is because like these later sections, I was playing that day of the podcast that night to kind of like match up what I thought, and like hearing your rant and then Ben countering it. It was hilarious to live through it and be like, yeah, no, I actually enjoyed that bit. But then the Pinjarra Plains that you started to enjoy, I had the opposite experience because the year or the spring before this, they closed this off for like 65 Ks so they could do a prescribed burn. And they've just obliterated the area. Like it's just burnt and bleak and terrible. And they'd burnt right up to Mount Chance shelter, and they had to get a bulldozer in just so they could put out the fire. So Mount Chance was not what I expected. And I actually thought I'd mistaken the photos you'd taken of Mount Chance for wool bales. So I was like, maybe this isn't the spot I'm remembering, because like the Karris had been burnt all the way to the canopy, and it was all blackened and a bit bleak. The views were still very, very lovely looking out towards the sunset and over the plains, but around the shelter was horrible and burnt. And then had the audacity to put in one of those signs saying, look at all the great things that prescribed burning is doing. We're saving nature and this and that. And I was like, no, you're ruining nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because of that, the next day was like all the way up to Mount Pinjarra was just, I was in such a dark mood because there was just no need for it. Like it was just, like that area is so remote. You're not protecting anything. There's not even like going to be a lot of fuel load out there. It's grassland, which is wet for most of the year. And if it does catch, it's going to burn out pretty quick. And if your response is good enough, you can put it out and contain it pretty well. I don't know. I just thought it was overkill. And a typical DBCA Sparks and Wildlife will just burn as much area as we can in one go just to meet the quotas. Yeah.
I think what really sort of drove it home for me was there's a photo that I took of this section where and it's my favorite photo of this section, where it's like There's like a golden glow in the sky. There's like grey clouds, and there's like this beautiful tree and the Pingarup Plains. And that was my like, there you are, Peter. Like that was the moment when I saw the greatness of the Pingarup Plains.
Yeah.
And you have the same photo, but it's like hideous.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it now. I think that's the one, yeah. Yeah, the trees just got like all this epicomic regrowth. And it's just, like, it doesn't look bad because I've made it try and look a little nicer, but it's, yeah. It's not the same as your photo. Because I remember that photo and being like, where is it? And I just by chance I'd taken the same photo.
Yeah.
But like once you got to Mount Pindarup, like because you rise up if you do the side trail, and it's really cool and lush. And I just kind of had that moment where I took a breath. I was like, right, like reset for the day. It's so nice up there, and it's very lush. There's fungi. It was kind of a return to the Karri Forest that you experienced earlier in the section, and then you get the really cool views, which is actually kind of my version of Mount Chance with the pristine Karri trees and the granite that I missed out on Mount Chance. And then for the rest of the day, I found that fantastic. There's a couple of little burnt sections. But this was when you go through like the Pindarup Plains again properly. There's some nice sections of like mixed Jarrah and Karri, and then all the way to Woolbales. It's just a really nice variety of landscapes that I was just enjoying quite a lot. And then Woolbales, I don't think I had the same experience as what everyone else does, because it really started to cloud over, and I think they were doing a prescribed burn near Mount Franklin, and all that smoke haze was coming in. It drowned out the night sky, so I didn't get to take any photos. And it was just kind of a really dull sunset, just because of all the smoke and the cloud. But it's a nice enough spot. I would rate Mount Chance over Woolbales, even though it was burnt.
Yeah, me too.
And Woolbales to Long Point. This was kind of a tough one to start with, because you just want to get to the coast, and it's always in the back of your mind that like I just want to get there. But it's still a long distance to go, and once you exit that Karri Forest and into the dune system, it's just like a bit of a slog trying to get there. But this is actually a really fun day. I think it was Bonnie that commented like she's never seen Mandalay Beach so flat, like the waves and everything. And it was just like a really moody day that was fun. But yeah, like exiting Mandalay Beach, those dunes are absolute killers. Like I thought I'd done so much further than I actually had, and I looked at the GPS and then looked at the map. I was like, oh god, I've still got like all this snaking to go through. And luckily it takes you near the coastal cliffs a fair bit more than I expected. But yeah, I was just kind of like, when are we there? And then I just settled into, I don't care how long it takes now. I'm enjoying that day. Yeah. And you didn't get to go to Little Cove and Little Long Point, did you?
No, I left it too late, and I didn't realize how far it was. And I was wearing sandals, and there was a snake on the track, and it was getting dark, and I thought, I think I've left this too late. I better get back and get some cooking done.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend if you're there to go. It's just a really fun spot, and if you keep going right up to Little Cove and the little granite areas you can sit on, it's just really meditative, just watching the waves just crash in and like the sets roll in and the spray go up, and it's a very wild feeling. Like, I know they say the Pindarup Plains is the wilderness, but this kind of south coast area I think is very special because going forward you can access a lot of the points along here by car, whereas I think this is a walkers only bit. It feels a little bit more special.
And it's also one of the only side trips on the trail that is like an actual proper side trip.
Like, yeah, it's marked on the shelter, like Little Cove this way, whereas most of the other ones you wouldn't know about unless you got the guidebook or you look at the map. Yeah. And then Woolbales to Walpole. So this was a day of two halves. So the first part of the day was really spectacular. Like it had rained overnight, and it was just like clearing showers and sunshine and rainbows all along the coastline. But then when it hits the Nuit's Wilderness area, sorry, it's the Nate's Wilderness area, isn't it? We cleared this up. It started to rain quite heavily. And so my experience from there going into Deep River and Mount Clair, which I'd already hiked anyway, so I wasn't too disappointed about not getting any photos, was just drenched. Like, I remember being at Mount Clair and I was there for an hour because I was cold. I'd taken all of my hiking stuff off and put my thermals on, and I was just waiting for the showers to stop. And then at one point I was just like, they're not going to stop. So I put my wet clothes back on and just like bolted straight into Walpole. Like pouring with rain, my shoes were full of water. It was still enjoyable, but yeah, had I have not hiked that already, I think I would have been really disappointed not to get those photos. But yeah, then Walpole, like I'm familiar with the town, so it was nice to get there and put the shoes in front of the fire and enjoy a wine.
Yep. Did you have a pie?
No, because I got there fairly late, and because that was my only like street clothes, my hiking stuff, so I had to wait for that to dry after having a shower before I could go into town.
Right.
I ended up going in wet hiking pants, and they didn't have like the bakery. It was the middle of winter, so nothing was really open. The bakery had nothing vegetarian. I ended up getting a panini or something from the cafe attached to the BP. I was like, this is horribly unfulfilling. And then my favorite restaurant in town is at the Top Deck Cafe.
I haven't been, though.
Oh, yeah, the guy had closed for weeks, so he could go on holiday, and it was a quiet season, so that wasn't open. I was really looking forward to eating there, and it was closed. So I ended up going to the pub, and I was literally the only person eating that night, and I ordered like, I think it was a cannellini and chips. And it just felt like they'd pulled it out of the freezer, put it in the oven, and then sprinkled some sauce and cheese on the top. And yeah, not an experience that I particularly enjoyed. And it's kind of like turned my like end of hike meals into I'm not that excited for them anymore.
Right.
Just because like you go, especially if you're out in the track for a week, your stomach shrinks so much that you can really only eat half a meal. So you better make sure it's a damn good meal, otherwise you're going to be really disappointed.
Okay, so
yeah,
the next section, Walpole to Denmark's my favorite section. And what did you think? Do you think it's your favorite, or I think you had different feelings about it than I did?
Yeah, there's a couple of days in here, where I think we differ quite a lot. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but it's probably equal favourite. Probably, yeah, equal favourite with Donnelly River to Pemberton or the Darling Range section, even though that's more like two sections. The first 3 days are outstanding. I think that's 5 out of 5 walking for me. Just the mix of Tingle Forest, the inlet, and then as you get to Conspicuous and Rame Head, those days are outstanding. But it's the coastal walking that I don't really enjoy. It's just the endless up and downs, and especially like Rame Head to Peaceful Bay. There's that first section before you get to the coast that's kind of like it's the new alignment, and it's not great because you're on 4-wheel drive tracks, and it's kind of meandering until you get to the coast. But then once you get to the coast, I really enjoy that entire stretch up to Peaceful Bay. And it's just such an idyllic spot. Fish and chips, caravan park. It was really warm when I was visiting, so I got to take a swim and spent a fair bit of time at the beach. But yeah, it's
you had a very different opinion about my favorite day of the track, I think.
I did. And I was listening to it back while I was doing it, and I was just like, why? Like, what was it about this section? Am I missing something? Because, like, the walk to the Irwin Inlet, it's okay, but it's not fantastic. And there's that section where you're walking next to the coast, but you're not really near the coast. And I thought you would have hated that. the bit walking up to the inlet entry.
We did it the other way around, so this was near the end of the day, and I think probably that
Okay.
changes the experience, because it's like, yeah, it's this road that's leading into Peaceful Bay. It's just another going into town section, and it's all right, but I've already had such a fantastic experience of the rest of it that I can discount that. But maybe if it's the first thing you see, then it's not as exciting.
Yeah, just like I was looking at the map, I was like, why not just take it onto the beach? Like that would make it so much better, because it is like 13 k's before you actually see a beach on this day, apart from Peaceful Bay. But the inlet crossing was as described. That was really fun. Had a bit of an adventure trying to put the canoe back onto the other side, because I didn't quite like match up the winds. It was pushing from the northeast, which was a bit of a weird one for that time of day. So I got blown towards the shore. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to paddle straight towards the shore and then just walk it up. And that actually solved my foot problems that I was having. I was having some issues, and I decided to continue on. But then a little dip in the Irwin Inlet fixed that right up, so I can say that it's magic.
Awesome.
And then the showgrounds, like this was an area I was really looking forward to after seeing all your pictures and your description of it. Beautiful area. It's just, again, like a really weird spot that you wouldn't expect just to have like meadows.
Yeah.
And there was like lots of wildflowers, lots of kangaroos who weren't too keen on moving along, which was good. So I got a few photos of them.
Yeah.
But then it felt like it dragged on for a bit too long. And there's those really steep up and downs on the dune systems where I was like, come on, let's just end this. And then once I got to the beach, I was quite happy again, because it was hard sand. I took my shoes off, rolled my pants up, and like played in the surf a little bit. And then through the quarrums, I enjoyed quite a lot. I liked the in and out of the rocky bays and the beaches. But then leaving, I think it's Back Beach, the one that's accessible by 4-wheel drive, and then it's the one leading towards that big staircase.
Yep.
From then onwards, I was like, what the hell is this section? Like, why does Donovan love this so much? It's just like dune bashing at its worst, because there's all these 4-wheel drive tracks crossing it. You're not actually seeing the ocean that much. It's kind of like weird inland views. And I was like, why is this a 5 out of 5 day for him? And you must have gotten better weather, or like, because you were doing that in the morning probably, so maybe it wasn't too much of an issue because it was fresh.
Well, I've done the section twice, and I loved it twice. So it wasn't just a one-day thing, because I did it when I first did the track in 2003. This was my favorite day of the Walpole to Denmark section. And then doing it again, I really enjoyed it. And so I've done it in both directions. And I felt that, I think, here's something that we discussed, was that you find like seeing a 4-wheel drive on a beach much more objectionable than I do. Whereas like walking on a broad 4-wheel drive track, I really hate that. So like Marin Road was much more objectionable to me, because it's like a double lane road, and I hate that. Whereas if I see a 4-wheel drive on the beach, that doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, but like most of the time in the Jarrah Forest, like if you see a 4-wheel drive, you know it's probably not meant to be there. Whereas on the south coast, like these are accessible tracks that people are allowed to go on, so that kind of like, it takes the specialness away from me. That people, like, you've spent most of your day trying to get here and you're walking along it, yet people can just drive up and drive on the beach. And like, it's like moving on a little bit to Mazzaletti, like people can drive along that beach and it takes you a long time to walk that, yet people can drive in like minutes and cover the distance that you are. It kind of doesn't make it feel as special.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't really bother me. But I guess if it does bother you, then that would take away the specialness of those days.
Yeah, it's just like it's almost every beach. That's the thing. Like if you'd left just a couple, that probably wouldn't have irked me as much. But it's like almost every beach and vantage point is accessible by some kind of 4-wheel drive track, and you're always crossing them. That's the thing. But the end of this day, I really, really enjoyed. So going up and seeing Rope Hill, which is not like a marked trail that they tell you to go up, that was really cool. Like I'd gone up and had a look before I went down to the shelter. And then as I was cooking dinner, I was like, you know what? I'm only probably going to be here once in a decade or every 5 years or whatever. Put the dinner down and like literally sprinted up the hill to go and watch the sunset from Rope Hill. And that was a really cool and special experience that I'm thankful that I did. And I've actually, like, I didn't used to be this kind of person, but now I'm like a seize the day kind of go and do it. Like, what's your excuse kind of thing, instead of putting up all these like mental blocks as to why you shouldn't do something. So that was really cool. And then I got the sunset, like the afterglow looking back towards Boat Harbour campsite. That was really cool. And then this next day again, this was a weird circumstance for me because it was split into two, because the Parry Inlet, they opened up like the day before I left to do this section, so I couldn't cross it anyway. So
it felt like that whole year they were conspiring against you.
Oh, it's just everything. Like, I was thinking about this today. Like, I've been wanting to visit Shannon National Park for years now, and I was going to go next week around Easter with my niece and take her there, but now we can't do that. So I don't know. There's certain places that I just, the hiking gods don't want me to visit until a special time. But this one was a bit of a weird one because it was like a half day. Like, I knew I was getting picked up at Parry's, and I did not enjoy this day at all, this half day. Like, it's just up and down and up and down. You don't really get to see much. It was okay for the first bit around Boat Harbour, but after that, I was just like, just get it over with. And then once you pass Point Hillier, the walk down to Paris just feels like an eternity. And it was just warm. I think by the time I got to Denmark, it was like 31 degrees. So it would have been about that walking through there. It was just, I don't know, it wasn't my cup of tea. But then coming back, got different weather. It was raining and overcast, and then it was fining up. And I really enjoyed Mazzoleti Beach, probably because it was the first 7 kilometers of that day.
Yeah.
And it was nice and hard as well, so I wasn't exactly like trudging and knee deep in sand. So that was cool. I'm watching like the different fronts come through, dump their rain, and then go off and create rainbows. That was really, really fun. And Greens Pool, I decided not to take the official track. I decided to go to Greens Pool and do it that way. And I think that's where the track should go. And I hope they realign it once all that construction work is done.
Yeah,
because that's a special spot that I think everyone should visit.
Yeah, it's crazy that it doesn't officially go there because it's just around the corner.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense to go there though, because like why cut through to then miss it and say, oh, it's there if you want to. Just take it there. And it's weird because there's Bibbulmun markers already on the staircases there. It's just quite odd because it is something you won't see on the track at all. Apart from there is giant boulders in turquoise water and the bit down to the Elephant Cove. Like, you're not going to get that anywhere else, and it's so special, especially on a warm day if you want to go for a swim.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the last day into Denmark, I think we have differing opinions on this one as well. You think it's a great day up until you leave Mount Halliwell.
Yep. And you think
I would tend to agree, but I actually enjoyed the walk into town. I know you found it tedious, but I don't know, it was late afternoon, or not late afternoon, like mid-afternoon. There was good lighting. The Jarrah forest looked really nice. And yes,
even the dieback infested bits?
The dieback infested bits. There was still wildflowers growing in that area. And like I was looking at the map, being like, because it's so weird the way it turns and turns and turns, and you're like, I'm pretty sure we need to go that way, but the track's heading me in another direction. So I was looking at the map and being like, surely we have to turn soon. But it was differing landscapes that wasn't bad. the walk through suburbia is like not great, but like you understand why they have to do it.
Mm.
And then I didn't mind the Jarrah Forest going into town. I don't know. It was probably again circumstance.
Yeah.
I know.
And also, you probably, I gave it such a negative review that probably does help again.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't know. And because this was my first, like, this was a day and a half into this trip. Had this have been probably at the end of my 7-day hike, I think I would have felt a lot different. Probably would have been similar to like walking into Northcliffe or Collie maybe. But the walk from it's weird that the trailhead is at the bridge over the Denmark River at the mouth, and you still have to walk into town. I really enjoy that walk along the river, the Mokari Heritage Trail.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to come into town because you really don't see the built-up area until you're actually at the park and in town. So it's not too far from like a trail to wherever you're staying.
And it's probably like one of the only times you walk through a like manicured landscaped park. And it has that kind of like the Shire kind of feel with the river. It's just a nice way to enter town. Probably like the nicest of the into town, side trips.
Yeah. So Denmark to Albany. So I probably had a different experience with this to you because I got dropped off at Pelican Point Jetty. So
yep.
My first section to Nulakai was actually, I think, probably a little bit more enjoyable because I skipped out I included a whole lot of the inlet walking.
Yep.
Which was a little bit nerve-wracking at times because I was so wary of snakes. I did this in late September. Every time I heard a rustle, I was like, shit, because you don't, like, it's such long grass, you could step on something so easily. But there was so many orchids through this area. Like the Nulakai Peninsula, I stopped counting how many donkey orchids I saw after an hour because it was in the hundreds. It was ridiculous. Like there were just patches of them where there would have been 6 or 7 dozen in a couple of square meters. But then, like I understand the frustrations of the Nulakai area because it is kind of, it's walking to get somewhere, and like Nulakai is not the best campsite, and I'm happy I made the decision not to stay there because it didn't look too appealing. Even like the middle of the day when I was there, it was still mozzie infested, and happy I did not stay. So this whole section I did in 3 days. So this was actually like me feeling like a through hiker and doing big kilometers a day, like 30 plus a day. So it felt kind of fun to kind of get to a campsite and being like, right, this is lunch instead of what do I do for the rest of the day?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This first section up until West Cape Howe campsite, I don't rate this section very highly. I think it could be a lot better than it actually is. So again, we probably agree on that point. But it's Lowlands Beach, the first one that you come across, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So from there onwards, I really enjoyed, and it was a really good wildflower season when I was through. So even walking through like the twisty, windy, like here's the Parongarups and the Stirling Range section, that's kind of I don't know, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I actually enjoyed because it was spotting different kinds of wildflowers, and West Cape Howe though, it's a really cool campsite. Being up on the hill there, seeing West Cape Howe in the distance, and getting the cool sunset, and I was lucky to have that one to myself that night.
Awesome. Yeah.
So then next day for me, so I did West Cape Howe to Muttonbird. So I skipped Torbay, staying there. So covering quite a bit of distance this day. It was actually quite fun because you knew you had to be at a certain point by sunset. So it was fun just to pound out the kilometers, and I remember stopping. It was about 4Ks in, and I texted our little chat groups with the photo of where they'd burnt out. And I was just like,
Yep.
I hope this does not last. And you guys were all like, oh no, that looks terrible. But luckily that didn't last, and it was actually quite a fun day. This is actually where I think this section improves quite a bit and is arguably one of the better sections of the whole track. Is you're up on the cliffs, you get to see the turquoise water down below. It feels less like dune bashing and more purposeful, the route that it takes. Bit disappointed it doesn't go out to West Cape Howe, but the views looking down towards Shelley Beach from the Bruce Tarbottom Memorial Track is that little section there where you're up on the cliff. That's a really special part of the track, and I'm glad it does go up there.
Yep.
Even
Thanks
if it does
to,
skip West Cape Howe.
Thanks to Bruce Tarbottom.
Yeah, whoever you are, there's not really much information out there.
Yep.
And then all the way to Torbay, I like that they then visit some granite, because like as soon as I saw that granite, I was like, right, I'm in the Torndirrup Albany area. Like it was that moment where it hits you like I'm close to finishing. There's Albany, and you rise up and you can see the wind farm, and you can see out towards like Bald Head and Peak Head, and it's getting closer, and it just, that moment felt like it was the end. And I really enjoy that little section walking down, and you get to Dingo Beach, even though you don't go to it. It's still pretty cool being that close. And Torbay, I would have liked to have stayed there. It looks like a really cool spot, but it's just timing wise didn't work out the way I'd planned. And then you get to probably one of my favourite sections of the track is Cozy Corner to Muttonbird.
Yeah, it's lovely there.
Yeah, really cool beach. Just felt really just relaxing. Like you weren't on a through hike. You were just walking along the beach. Everything was nice and hard. Like I passed a few people. There was a guy driven onto the beach, which again I didn't mind because I felt like I was closer to Albany, so it wasn't so much of a big deal. I don't know mentally
So
how
it's
I
okay
came
now.
to that. Yeah, it was okay now because we're close to Albany. And Cozy Corner, that's a campsite that people can go to, and yeah, it felt really cool. And then looking out towards, I think it's Shelter Island, the one closest to Muttonbird, and there's another one bit further out. It was just like perfect lighting for me, and then there were storm clouds coming in, and it was an amazing like atmospheric conditions for me finishing that day. And then I got to explore the side trail, which I'm happy I found that note in the book. So as you get into Muttonbird, there's that 4-wheel drive track you cross. If you go towards the coast on that, it's like 400 or 500 meters. You get to like the cliff area, and you get the really cool views looking back towards the wind farm, and then looking west to West Cape Howe. It's there. That was one of the best sunsets I've had on the trail, and also sunrises because I went up there in the morning as well. But Muttonbird campsite, oh my god, that was one of the worst nights I've had on the trail out there.
Yeah. Why is that?
Well, because I went up to view the sunset and I hadn't cooked dinner, and I got back and the mozzies came in. Like there was just so many mozzies, and I hadn't set up my tent inner because I didn't think that they were going to be that bad. So I was like trying to cook dinner, set up my tent, and then I took my dinner into my tent, and there was a couple staying there as well. They'd already gone to bed as soon as it got dark. So I was trying not to wake them. I was trying not to flash my lights, and I could hear all the mozzies inside my tent once I zipped it up. So I was like trying to kill them so they didn't bite me. It was just such an awkward experience. And then I woke up and there's millipedes everywhere. So I was like really, really like panicked and anxious. Like, I didn't want them on my tent that I was going to pack away. It was just not a great night. But then the final day, that walk to Sandpatch is just magnificent. So yeah, that walk to Sandpatch is magnificent. Just beautiful coastline, beautiful water. You got the wind farm as well. It's really cool that you get to walk through it, and just get to see like the big turbines. And I don't know, there's a little bit of magic on that day, because I was looking out for whales and I didn't see one, but I got to see dolphins in the surf below the cliffs, and that was enough for me. I think that was that topped
awesome.
off. But yeah, the walk into Albany, not fantastic. We talked about this on the Dream Bib pod, but it's just such a slog, and it was starting to like sprinkle with rain, and I just wanted to get into town. And then that little side trip up Mount Melville, I was like, why are we doing this? Like, why not just go straight along the coast? Like, I don't care if I'm walking on the road, just get me, also not along the coast, along the bay, just get me into town.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I guess they there must be some logic behind. They thought, oh, this will be exciting and interesting.
Yeah, it's just an annoyance at the end of the day. Someone needs to fund my tunnel under King George Sound.
Yeah, one day.
Yeah.
So I had a few questions for you about the track, because I guess this has been a rebuttal, but it's not been a significant like tut Donovan. I disagree with you, but it's your opinion of it and how maybe a different time of doing it has changed your experience compared to mine. And I just wanted to ask, because I guess I left the track and while I was very glad to have done it, I probably left and realized this is not really the kind of trail for me. But then also, it taught me a lot about hiking. So I guess the question I'd have is, from when you started to now, how has it changed you as a hiker and influenced that as an entire experience?
I would say, and I know one hiker who like scoffs at the fact when anyone calls it a life-changing experience. I think it is. Like, for me, it was a 3-year experience. I grew as a person a whole lot through hiking the track, because it is doing it independently. You have to plan, execute, like adjust. Everything that goes into it is an experience that will change you. And the track, like, it goes to so many different places, and I think I've become a lot more aware of certain things like the logging in the southwest, the mining, like the impact that humans have on the entire world has been changed a lot more, because I am out in these areas and you see like what's going on. And for 95% of the track, it's regrowth forest from one point or another. So it's really sad to see that, like, the human impact on our landscape, as much as people think it's wilderness, it's not. Like, every part of the track has been touched by humans at one point, probably more for the worse than the better. So mentally and like spiritually and emotionally, I've matured a whole lot doing the track, and like, it becomes a part of you. Like, each section that you do, when you see someone else has done it, you're like, oh, I remember when I did that. And like, you want other people to have the same experience that you did, not the same, but like a similar experience. So yeah, it becomes part of you and changes you. And I think this has done my life, or for my life, probably more than anything else, I would have to say.
Awesome. That's really good.
What about you? I know you came off the track feeling a bit down, but has your thoughts changed over the years? Do you think you'll ever maybe do an end-to-end or revisit some of the sections?
So I think I'll say that to begin with, I probably wouldn't be a hiker if not for the Bibbulmun Track. So the first time, I wanted to walk a track was when I saw the Bibbulmun Track sign when I was 13. And it certainly has been, a constant companion in that sense. I think where its strength is that it's a great trail to learn how to hike on. I think that it has taught me a lot, but it also taught me that I probably am not really, like, what I want out of a trail is one that's very much a visually stunning trail with a lot of wow moments. And while I can appreciate some of those contemplative, mental state sections where there's nothing really to see. That's not what I'm really wanting to go out and hike for. And so I probably realized that there was a difference in, I've often talked about this, different genres of hiking. That there are people who hike for mental well-being. Some people hike for distance. That's something that's really important to people. And I realized that I'm probably not a distance person, that I'm more interested in, spectacular scenery. And while the bib does have it, it doesn't have it on a level that I would want out of a trail. And that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying that it's a bad trail. I think it's a fantastic trail. And I think as far as long trails go, you'd be hard-pressed to find one with better facilities. But I guess there are sections of the track that I would very much like to do again, and all the more so now that I can't do them. I'm certainly feeling it. But then there are sections, like as you said, that, there are bits that I probably will never walk again, if I can avoid it. So I think that's where I am with it. And as I said not too long ago, I still haven't gotten over the trauma of Marin Road, but maybe one day I will, and then I will do it again.
That can be like your final step in your recovery is you go out to Marin Road and you make your peace with it.
Yeah.
Maybe take Steve with you.
Yeah.
But I remember you saying on a previous pod that the Bibbulmun has taught you that you're not a through hiker and that doesn't interest you. Is that still the case?
Yes, it is. That is true. However, I did say to you that if I was unemployed and we could travel around Australia again, that I would go and try the Larapinta. I think I'd probably try something that's sort of in that length where it's like just a bit over 2 weeks to do.
Yeah. Something
like that, or the Grampians Peak Trail would be something I'd do, and then I'd see whether it's just that I don't like that kind of forest walking, or whether it is a through hiking thing. Because if I did that and I enjoyed it, then it says that it's not the through hiking thing that's not of interest to me. I guess what I mean when I say that is that I feel like the bib, because of its length, is compromised, because nothing that long can ever be outstanding from start to finish, and I'm not interested in walking a compromised trail. But then for other people that doesn't matter. Like, we have a lot of friends and acquaintances who only seek out trails that are going to take them for like 2-3 weeks. And that's totally fair. I think that's a valid perspective to have.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you would do another through hike of this length?
Yes, most definitely. So it's a bit of a running joke with friends that know me, have known me since I first started working for the company that I do, that just waiting out for redundancy, because it's like been on the cards for like going on a decade now. And I think it's maybe like 3 or 4 years away, or I'm hoping it's 3 or 4 years away, and I'm just waiting out to do that, and then I can afford to take like a big enough time. And I've already said, like, that happens, I'm doing the bib, and I'd be quite happy. Like, I'm looking forward to doing it end to end, and then maybe ride the Munda Biddy back. But like in terms of trails, either around Australia or around the world, like I see myself as not a super duper through hiker, like doing the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian or something like that. But like lengths around the Bibbulmun up to like 1,500, 2,000 kilometers, I think I'd be quite interested in doing if I had the time and the money. But for now, like, because the bib is local, it's nice and close. You can plan certain sections around long weekends or weeks off. Like, be more than happy to go back and do another sectional end to end.
Would you ever do it as a full thing from start to finish in one go?
Yeah. So if I do get redundancy, I would do it Kalamunda to Albany. Hopefully by the time it happens, maybe my niece is old enough and maybe wants to do it with me. I think that'd be a cool experience, because I think doing it solo, like I would enjoy it, but it'd be nice to like show someone the track, especially a close family member. Even if I had like a friend join for half of it or a few weeks or whatever, or have different people join me over the time. It's one thing I said after hiking so much of it solo is I much prefer it if someone was there to share the experience.
Cool. So normally here's where we would say thank you to our guests, but I'll thank you, Mark, for sharing your experience of this.
Thank you for well, I don't know. It's been a long time coming, and I really honestly did not think it would take us 59 episodes to get to this point. Like I had originally planned to finish this in 2018, so for it to be this long, and I really wanted to have some time to mull over and write a post about it before I came on, but yeah, I guess we might be doing this you and me thing for a while now if we can't figure out how to get guests on via the phone.
I think we'll work it out, but we've just got to work out the logistics. And I had an experience the other day where I was on a video meeting with someone and they were talking to someone else and they could hear someone else, but I couldn't hear the other someone else, which made me think, that's a eureka moment. But we're not there yet, so we'll be working that out. But this, I'm hoping, is the epilogue to our Bibbulmun Track story, because this is, we've covered a lot of different sections, and I don't think there's much more we can say about it, really, is there?
I mean, until they do like a massive realignment or they open new campsites, I don't see what else we do. We've done our Dream Bib 2-parter.
Yep.
This might be goodbye to the bib for a while.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it's nice to finish, and it's also a little bit sad, but I guess.
But that's the experience of finishing a trail, isn't it?
Exactly. Like you're always looking for the next one, and we've got plenty of content planned. Hopefully the situation we're in now doesn't last too long and we can get through it and then off on other adventures.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not banking on the Thorsby Trail happening in July, but that's my version of, you were talking about things that you're never meant to do. Yeah. And it seems like the Thorsby Trail's my white whale, but we'll see.
You'll get there one day.
Yep. Well, anyway, thank you everyone for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode or any other episode of Real Trail Talk, then please rate us on whatever platform you're currently listening to us on. Ratings really help for us to reach an audience and for people who maybe are looking to learn about the outdoors in Western Australia and Australia in general. If you had any questions or any suggestions for future episodes, you can email us at realtrailtalk@gmail.com, or you can contact us through our social media channels. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're not quite sure what we're going to do because of the obvious limitations, but we shall certainly strive to bring something interesting for you in our next episode. Thanks for listening.